We are a third of the way through 2021, and there has already been several shocking moves in the wrestling world. Today, we look at 10 wrestlers who will become free agents before the year ends and talk about where they might end up. After being granted his WWE release due to poor creative, the ECW icon RHINO found his way back to Impact Wrestling. Impact, given their limited television time, has certainly been able to give RHINO a purpose, but with his storyline with Heath Slater being sidelined due to the latter's injury, he found a new creative direction in Eric Young's Violent by Design faction, giving him a chance to thrive. When his contract expires in July of this year, AEW may well be interested in his services given Tony Khan's love of ECW, although they are stacked with legends already. WWE is an unlikely home at this time given his recent run with the promotion, leaving RHINO's best bet in sticking it out with Impact for a few more years before hanging up his boots for good. Brothers Marshall and Ross Von Erich, the offspring of wrestling royalty the Von Erich family, signed with the up-and-coming MLW promotion back in 2019. They are a formidable tag team with the lineage and athletic pedigree on their side, meaning they would be a great fit anywhere they decided to go. WWE has shown an interest in them in the past, and in all honesty, they may revitalize the somewhat stumbling tag team scene in NXT, though when they arrive on the main roster, they may be lost in the shuffle, as what happens with most NXT tag teams these days. However, AEW has long professed their intent on promoting great tag team wrestling, which could make for an intriguing landing spot, especially with their tendency of recognizing pro wrestling history, something the Von Erichs are very much a key part of. The former MLW champion and UFC superstar Tom Lawlor is one of the more intriguing upcoming free agents on the market when his deal expires in November. Currently signed to MLW, Lawlor fits in perfectly with their MMA pro wrestling crossover style, but he would also be an interesting figure in any of the big organizations. He could make a splash at NXT and maybe even the main WWE roster, as they love a former UFC fighter, as shown by their booking of Ronda Rousey and Brock Lesnar. He's also known for his promos from his days in the UFC, which would work perfectly for the WWE. AEW could present intriguing matchups, though Lawlor's overall style is still best suited for the MLW product, although he would also be a perfect fit in New Japan Pro-Wrestling, where he has wrestled a few matches in the past. Lawlor could be set to make a big jump in the coming year, making a big splash wherever he decides to go. Though her contract expires in July, KIERA Hogan has been afforded some great opportunities with Impact. This includes the capture of the revived Impact Knockouts tag team titles with Tasha Steelz. While it's hard to see her giving up on a company that pushed her to the forefront, she would certainly not be the first or last to do so if she decided to go for a more high-end environment. Landing with AEW would perhaps be a bit awkward considering AEW and Impact's relationship, although it's not unheard of as seen with Ethan Page. KIERA would be a terrific fit with NXT, where she could really hone her personality and bolster her already terrific skills. She looks like a star and certainly has the quote WWE look, so if she was to transition to the main roster, she could definitely make some waves. From his days in Ring of Honor all the way through to his eventful tenure in Impact, Moose has been a top player who has seen Impact afford him his biggest opportunities yet. He does owe them a lot for their efforts with him, but it is possible that he has outgrown the company and might be ready to move on to other things. He would be a great addition to the AEW main event scene, which could see him battle with the likes of Lance Archer, Wardlow, Brian Cage, and even Paul White. While it would be tough for Impact to lose one of its biggest stars, Moose would also be a great fit for WWE and is very much a Vince McMahon guy. They have been known to be interested in him in the past, but he did turn them down, but I'm positive that he'll have another offer on the table come June. After being released from WWE on questionable circumstances, the former Cruiserweight champion Rich Swann made his way to Impact Wrestling, where he, despite multiple injuries, carved his way to the very top of the company through exceptional character growth and stellar in-ring performances. In April, the current Impact champion will battle AEW champion Kenny Omega at Rebellion in one of the most exciting cross-company battles in recent history. But if he were to join either AEW or WWE, it's unlikely that he would experience the level of growth that the somewhat less stacked Impact roster has afforded him. His contract does expire in May, so perhaps the Omega match is to set up his departure from the company, but I'm predicting that he'll stay put for now. Former Knockouts champion Jordynne Grace is certainly an athlete that any company would love to have on their roster. While she has had her shining moments at Impact, others have overtaken her in that space, so she will likely make the jump to one of the big two, though she has stated that getting to the WWE was the dream. There is no doubt that both companies will want her, triggering a bidding war. AEW need depth in their women's division, but one can argue that WWE and NXT is a better option, with a much more stacked division to compete and thrive in. Expect her to head to the Performance Center when her Impact deal expires in May. Sami Zayn's trajectory is a tough one to pin down. The man has been all over the place, but one of two things is certain: he either re-signs with WWE or jumps to AEW. Sami was one of the biggest reasons for the success of the early days of NXT. He has been a WWE roster mainstay and a former champion, so the company has been relatively good to him, especially as of late. He has, however, been critical of WWE's business practices in the past and hasn't always been booked well on the main roster. And before we continue, if you're enjoying the video, make sure you drop a like down below as it helps me out a lot. And why not subscribe as we head towards 10,000 subscribers. But let's get back to the video. One of the positives of a move to AEW would be to revitalize his El Generico persona, a character WWE have yet to explore. He's currently being given the Logan Paul rub in WWE and a marquee feud at this weekend's WrestleMania where he takes on his former friend Kevin Owens, so this could all be to butter him up to get him to re-sign in the fall before falling back down the card. Rowdy Ronda Rousey has made one hell of an impact in WWE given her relatively short time there, holding on to the women's title, participating in 2 WrestleManias and main eventing the second one in one of the most historic matches in women's wrestling history. Having her show up anywhere but the WWE would seem impossible due to the sheer star power that she has, and whilst a jump to another wrestling company is unlikely, she could well head back to the UFC to seek the redemption she no doubt longs for following the 2 losses that ended her undefeated MMA streak, which ultimately led to her retirement from the sport. The losses severely affected her mental health at the time, so maybe it's best left in the past, but expect Rousey to let her contract expire in April before potentially rejoining WWE or UFC somewhere down the line. And last on the list is Daniel Bryan, who is in some way the hardest one to predict. He has stated in the past that he adores the WWE, which has given him his biggest platform and is still booking him for a strong WrestleMania main event. On the flip side, Bryan has never been hungry for the money, just for the love of the business and the ability to elevate others by performing with them. He has long expressed his desire to have one more indie run and to travel the world, particularly to Mexico. While a WWE departure is not out of the question, Bryan's path likely lies with a limited performance role in the WWE. Not only would he be able to perform in the ring on a lighter schedule, but he can also transition into a backstage agent role when the time comes. That being said, Bryan will certainly be tempted by the opportunity to travel the world and explore all of the top promotions, rekindling his freelance spirit. With the options of AEW, New Japan Pro-Wrestling, CMLL, as well as many other top companies. With his contract expiring in September, could we be on the brink of a Bryan Danielson World Tour? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. And while you're here, why not click on the video on the screen right now and check out 10 AEW stars who competed at Wrestle Kingdom.